Welcome to the Love, Sex, and Leadership podcast, where you can discover simple tantric teachings to embody your true power, awaken your soul's wisdom, and live an inspired life as a natural, intuitive, and heart-centered leader.
Let's take a breath. Nice to have you here with us. So welcome everyone to Love, Sex, and Leadership. I'm here in Bali with a dear friend, a lover from many years ago, my dear friend Sofia. Welcome to the show. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
We're both actually here filming for another project that's happening, and I've been chatting with her for a little bit about bringing her onto this podcast. I just first want to honor and appreciate really when I was kind of first coming into this field of Tantra, after many years after I'd done my master's degree, I met this amazing goddess that really initiated me in many ways and opened the door into the world of Tantra, into feeling more deeply, and just have a lot of appreciation for the impact you had at my life that time. So, and I know I'm not the first man of that nature that you supported in that way, and that was also kind of the inspiration for reaching out. I know Sofia had shared a post about some of the men that you've supported to step into their greatness, step into their boldness, step into their fullness, and I could recognize that inside of me. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. It's been just such a delight to see you blossom, just like from. I remember just now I was telling you that I remember you were kind of figuring out your poetry book or what to do with your life and where to go. You had a couple of clients and you were kind of supporting them, and then just from there to where you are now, like some people refer to you as a Tantra king.
I don't know about that, but all right.
And like just so in demand and like having so many things going on for you. I'm so happy to see that, and just this amazing transition you are in your personal life right now. It's just stunning. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I'd love for you to just share, like, in your journey with love and with men, both working with them professionally as well as personally, like what's your kind of driving force that keeps you moving forward to both help and support men that are challenged in this way. And yeah, if you want to share both on a professional context as well as like where you find yourself moving in some personal new connections and relationships and things like that.
Well, what drives me is very simple. It's love. And I never had the idea that I need to help someone actually, or even support someone. Even though I do help a lot of people, their relationships change, their relationship to themselves, to God, to wealth, to success. Those things change. But my incentive is never to help. My incentive is always to be as close to love as I can be, and to be as close to the divine as I can be, and through that become as transparent as I can be, and so that grace can flow freely in ways that are often mysterious and puzzle my mind, but that's what happens. And I know that with every breath, with every year, with every deepening into my intention, into my devotion, I become more and more transparent. And that's what I see also happening with people that I work with, and with men and with women, that there is this that what I see happening is that there is this cleansing that's going on, that there is the grip of the identity is lighter and lighter and lighter, and so there's more and more purity and more actual power. And this kind of power, not the type of power that we have to fight and prove and become someone because it feels right, but just because there's this kind of permission. It's like you step into greater permission, and then you do things, but first you are that bigger space that you were always meant to be.
And what I'm hearing in that is a place of really leading with love, like leading into embodied space of love to almost give permission for men, which I feel like they almost forget because we live in a very cognitive world, but to be in a place that invites more of the naturalness into our body. Would that be how you kind of express that? But how, like a man who's driven and wanting to get things done and be a provider and do all these things, of course there's love that's there, but I feel like sometimes for a lot of men it's almost an afterthought. Like, how do you invite this like softer embrace of love? And it's like, I got things to do. I got things to do.
Yeah, but that's a woman's job to invite a man there. And I see quite miraculous things happening when women really occupy their true place of this womb, of this yoni, of this softness that is the permission in herself. And then when a man actually opens his heart and he has done enough work to feel, it's not an intellectual thing that's going on there, but there's a natural dance that starts to take place. Just like it is for you to completely naturally provide for your beloved, and like, not, she doesn't have to work, she doesn't have to do anything. It's like you're completely there, like pouring into her. Why you're doing that? It's not because you're like, maybe it does make sense, but I feel like there's more like a surrender into that's going on. And then even more so, what I start to see more and more and everywhere really taking place is that when a man relaxes into this, like, yeah, I just want to pour everything into this woman, he expands exponentially. Like he actually becomes richer. The more he gives, the richer he becomes, because when there is this depth of safety that's created for her to blossom, when she is invited and she's celebrated in her yes and her opening and her love, and she's being constantly poured into, and she just keeps blossoming and blossoming and just overflowing into him, which naturally, like, we're designed like that. When this starts to happen, then there's this massive acceleration and circulation of energy starts to happen, and then this wealth expands like crazy. And these are the things that are like, they're not, no one is really teaching that. It's not something that is a common knowledge. I'm sure that when people hear this, there are a lot of intellectual questions, but when we just drop a little bit deeper than the mind and we relax into in the way nature has built us, and then just try this way of being for real, we just get mesmerized. It's how perfect it is. And it's not about trying, it's not about trying to fit into this context, it's not about demanding, it's not about expecting even, but more so relaxing into this natural way of the body, how the body is made. Beyond polarity even, it's like the body. How is it for a woman to be in her body with her hormones, with her changes, with her ability to hold so much just in our brain? We manage to hold so much as women, and men are so good at focusing naturally, hormonally. So when we just occupy these natural places, then this dance occurs. But of course, it requires so much deconditioning, because equality, emancipation, proving something, fighting, all these wars that we witness on this planet.
And do you feel that when a man, pours himself into his woman, which I celebrate, like I love the devotional essence that can come through from, I feel it with myself, with my beloved. I feel, I felt that times when we were together. But I also feel, and I'm curious your reflection, that if a man doesn't know his own center, and he makes his woman his sun and his moon and his Mercury and his Venus, and he's just like all there, then I think sometimes that what you're saying can almost be misconstrued, and it's like, oh, a man just has to show up, and almost like not an old school format, but how would you say to like allow a man to pour himself in, but to still hold his center point?
Beautiful question. Such a perfect question. Because these things, they have to be natural. They shouldn't be forced. Because when he doesn't know his center and he loses himself in a woman, I call this Prince stage. It's a man who is looking for himself, who is searching for himself, who is trying to understand who he is. He is following experiences. He wants experiences. He needs experience in life. He's not mature enough. So he, in this stage, he won't be able to do that. He can try, but there will always be the sense of like, oh, what am I getting back, kind of thing. It's like in this whole market mentality, which just shows that the state of consciousness is not correct for this kind of dance. He's not there yet. But it's when a man chooses to mature into his highest potential, and he chooses to mature into the king, then it's a whole other type of consciousness. There he cannot lose himself, because he is actually rooted in himself. And he understands his value, and he understands the value of the woman, and he understands what like the world that is way, way bigger than the two of them, and how blessed we are to be a part of this grandiose creation. So it's like, it's really about levels of consciousness. On one level, it makes no sense, and you can try to understand it as much as you want it, but you won't. Like, I'm sorry, it's like on a certain level of consciousness, you will just not get it. But when you choose to occupy your highest potential, and maybe you're maybe work in progress, which is okay. We're all work in progress, and we'll forever will be, as long as we're in these bodies. Well, okay, you can be a work in progress, but you still can go 10x, and you can go like, okay, who am I when I am actually already that? And like, if you have the consciousness to hold your path and where you're actually going, or who you're becoming, then then you'll find a way, and it will feel natural.
Yeah, I like that analogy of the prince, because if I reflect into the time we shared, like there was a part of me that was what I reference as like projecting all of my own kind of feminine energy onto you and not knowing my own center. And there's a story I often reference. I remember when we were in Egypt together, actually. And it was such a shift. It was such a beautiful change in my life, because there was this moment where, I had poured all my love and energy, and I was like, oh, I was so broken. And it was in that moment that I felt the spirit of what I would say my own inner feminine kind of coming back to allow the maturity, the inner union, to allow like something else. And from that moment, I went on it was at least a 3+ year journey of deepening an inner union. Like that was my only focus, was inner union. And then, soon after that, I met, my partner I was with for a while. And when we came together with Raven, it was like there was two inner unions uniting in a place of love. And it was like, so I felt like there was a maturity to that. So I can really personally reflect and appreciate that. And I feel the place of the prince is almost what like Hollywood and thing is selling. It's like selling this unrealistic way of being. And so I'm not curious, any reflections on this? My sense is a lot of men, they don't actually know how to show up, because they're being sold all of these false pretenses of what they think they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I think all the love songs, all the Hollywood movies, it's really rare to see any kind of sense of sobriety in all of that, because we live in a society of addicts. Like, really, like the love addiction is pretty severe. Like just this kind of trying to fill the hole that will never be filled, trying to fill it through someone else's validation, someone else's attention, someone else's love, someone else's something. And then we see all these movies and the songs that are just about this obsession. You're like, I cannot live without you. You are my everything. You are this romantic, but you can say these things, play with it, but usually it doesn't end well because people take it seriously, and they take it deep, and these words matter. And then when there is this abandonment of self, where it's like you feel that another person can give you something that actually only God can give you, and then the problems begin. And then the jealousy, and then the constant dissatisfaction, and constant trying to mold the partner into someone else, and trying to get something from them even though they cannot, and they're like really giving you everything. This is especially, I mean, that's very strong in women, but also in men. Sometimes when it's like you really want your partner to just change a little bit, but it's like, but they're not meant to. Why do you need them to change? Just let them be who they are.
I guess the question in that, and I know this is something you've journeyed with, is, and I think a lot of people are challenged with as well, is when you're in relationship, like, where's the point where you know it's time to go, like it's time to separate? Because I see a lot of people, you know, I see a lot of this with clients, with individuals that are holding on, almost grasping for what love used to be, and there's a new form there, but it requires a certain level of letting go. What do you have to share with that?
I'm sure you also have some good wisdom on that. In my experience, it's time to let go is when you really can accept the other person. When you really, it means you've learned lesson. I find that there are two types of relationships. One is actually a massive blessing, and not everyone will be blessed that way, but it's a life partner kind of relationship, like really this dharmic relationship that you're meant to stay together. And then there is those those karmic relationships, and kind of like, and not in a bad way, but like the relationships that are teaching us something, that really came to heal us. And there will be multiple of these. Like as a child, I always wanted to have this one and only relationship. And some people get that, they meet their beloved early on, and then they stay together, and they grow together, and there's an evolution. But for me, it was not meant to be. I was meant to have a lot of partners, and every partner is still deep in my heart, and it was really meaningful because with every man I have healed a part of myself, and every man has given me a gift that is incredible. But then when we're trying to hold on, and when we try to mold it into the life partner relationship, that's when we really start to hurt ourselves, and we start to really cleanse ourselves also, because in this holding on, there's a massive purification that's going on. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just a lot of suffering. So some people want to go through this suffering, even though they don't think so, they don't choose it consciously, but there is this yearning. It's like, I need to really suffer, and then you suffer through it, and then what makes you suffer is that you cannot accept what life is showing you. You cannot accept that this partner will not change. You cannot accept that you are not meant to be relating with someone's potential. No, like, you cannot make it work. You cannot make love work. You just cannot make love work. You cannot. It either works or it doesn't work. But then if you're trying to prove to yourself that you can, and you're holding with your tight little fists, so much pain. And yet the end of the relationship, what I find, is when you actually can really accept that this is who I am, this is who this person is, whatever is their story, whatever is their problem, is not the problem. It's a perfection of who they are. And wherever it hurts inside of me, that's my problem. And I get to work on that. And then that's what I found in my last long-term relationship, that when I really accepted him, that's when it was complete. That's when love took over, because the highest love wanted us to separate. And when we were holding on for dear life, it was not coming from love. It was coming from fear. It was coming from this healing, this need for healing.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people that hold on way too long, and they're not actually willing to let go, to allow what natural love wants to flow. It's a it's both a sad and liberating moment, I think, when someone, and I've felt this at numerous times, where someone can actually look eye to eye with another and recognize, like you're saying, that love is actually inviting us to take separate paths. And it requires a certain maturity of the soul, a certain maturity to recognize, I don't know that love is ever going to go anywhere. Like, love is always, it's an omnipotent force. It's all around us. And yet it's often that grasping thing that we're reaching for. Where do you feel like for yourself is your new adventures into love? What's alive in Sofia's world and new adventures into love? What's the next evolutions?
I feel really ready for a life partner. I feel I'm really ready. There is a like a I don't know if we can cut this. I don't know what's going on. So, so I feel that genuinely in my evolutionary journey there is like a whole new phase that's coming, and this is unlike anything that I've experienced before. And then I feel that kind of the geometry of my life has to be quite particular for that to happen. And so I really feel that the life partner is coming, that this is the actual like next important step in my life. And so I've actually liberated a lot of space in my life to allow him to come, to reveal himself, to be with me. And at the same time, I'm so relaxed. I'm not searching. It's like first time in my life that I'm actually happy to be single, and there's no nervousness or anxiety in me. I just know that it's like the moment I become really open and really ready on every level for this man to fully reveal himself, that's when he will present himself.
And what was the shift for you that made you not like searching and chasing, not chasing, but wanting love? Like what shifted in your inner outer world that's allowed you to feel more what you're sharing, like comfort in being single in that way?
Well, understanding how love addiction works. So that was a really interesting thing for me to see that actually like this kind of nervousness and kind of wanting and like this craving, that although there is beauty to it if we really relax through it, and in the tantric approach, you can really go through desire into the ultimate desire for the divine and just rest there. And that has been my practice for so many years, to just really go through the desire. Even my name, Sundari, it's a name of a goddess who stands for the erotic desire, and this first desire of every human being, this beauty, the only beauty that there is, the beauty of the divine. And so through that's been such a major part of my path, to just open to my yearning, and through the yearning to meet the yearning that is always answered, actually, in every moment that I am held, that I am met by God and being made love to by the eternal beloved every single moment of my existence. And then it's like it's such a deep space, and then there are layers on the way, and one of the layers I really had to address, which is this love addiction layer. And that gave me so much wisdom. It's incredible. I never saw it, and I see that my whole life it was there, this way of like, even the way like I dress, the way that I would get ready to go somewhere, the way that I would go to any party, to any event, there would be this kind of this vigilance, this like, oh, okay, like checking, am I attractive, who am I attracted to, what's gonna happen, like in the conversations, like there was no relaxation. It's like, okay, it's just me, it's just that's just the truth of the moment. But there was this kind of like, like in the back of my head there would be like a little like checking, expecting, waiting for something to happen. So, and I thought it's normal, and I think most people think it's normal, but yes, I think 95% of the people on the planet are very addicted. And the addiction actually doesn't matter if you're addicted to food or to drugs or to alcohol or to pornography or to gaming or to love. It's actually all the same thing. It really takes us away from truth. And so that on my path, that was a really interesting, very important place to pause and to really work on that. And of course, a man helped me.
Beautiful.
Because he really revealed to me that I was like, wow, I really abandoned myself to be with a person like that, and like to experience that edge with him. And then I was like, wow, I'm so grateful, because that was exactly the medicine I needed to really see that face to face. And then just to really collect myself and to just fall in love with myself anew, and just love those places in myself that I've still subconsciously was trying someone else to love for me. You know, like my aloneness, for example. I find that that's the most challenging place for us to relax into often, because, like, you know, why the search for constant romance, constant relationship? Because we're so scared to be alone. And that's why also to the previous topic you brought, why people stay too long in relationships, because they're so scared to be alone. Why are you so scared to be? What's going to be there? Well, you'll meet yourself. Shit. That's what I've been trying to avoid. Yeah, to meet yourself. What does it mean? It's not all parrots and butterflies. There are some dark places, but actually, when you start to hold these dark places, they're so beautiful.
So meeting the deeper, darker places to actually know what the depth of love is. And I'd love to explore even more like the definitions of love, because I hear you saying addicted to love, and to me, if I look at love, like I can reference like the human personality part that might be addicted to the form of love that I see it as. But if I look at like, of course, there's love addicts in relationship, and maybe that's the reference point you're there, where you were at. But love itself, like, is this, you know, it's this beautiful divine essence that can't be personified or quantified in any way. So I guess, like, maybe a clarification of like, where's the difference between that? Like, how could I ever be addicted? I am that which is everywhere in all things. So
yeah, that's the paradox.
Whoa.
Because you cannot be addicted to that which you are. So if you are addicted to something, then it's like it's you call it love addiction, but of course it's not love. Of course it's just an illusion. Of course it's just this kind of hunger to get something. But it's just, it's a term which is quite limiting. But yeah, it's addiction to romance, better to say, addiction to relationships or to sex.
And let's talk a little bit more about, you know, romance and men who are providers and the frameworks of our, you know, relationship formats. And, you know, to me, it's a very natural place to be a provider and supporter and take care, you know, the partner I'm with. And, you know, with such a rise of feminism and women's rights and women wanting to really stick up, sometimes it's almost like, you know, like I'm often, especially, I mean, I'm not now, but before when I was dating, like always getting the check. And sometimes the women have to like fight, like, no, I got this, and be like, no, like, you know, and that would almost speak something to like the capacity of their willingness to surrender. So like, I'm curious your thoughts on this, as well as what's been showcased around like equal rights, and how in relationship, if there is a level of polarity that creates chemistry, that creates connection, can that healthy chemistry only be there with these very kind of foundational frameworks? A man's a provider and a woman is, you know, in her expression, or can there be places where a woman can provide and not lose the polarity of that relating?
Yeah, to me, it again boils down deeper than polarity, because polarity is like a little bit of a kind of, I don't know if it became a hype concept or something. Although originally I do believe that it all came from David Deida, who I adore and who has gorgeous teachings around that, and who actually brings his teachings from such a refined state of consciousness, where really, to understand what he means by polarity, originally we have to understand what he means by the third stage of relationship between men and women, where actually it's actually life making love to the void. So yeah, so that's why I kind of like, I'd like to go even kind of to a different place on polarity and how I understand it, how I explain it. It's just the biology. Yeah, like a woman will always look for a man who may potentially be a father for her children. Same for a man. You know, even if people decide not to be parents, which is, you know, people's choice, but still there is this, like, you know, like life always wants to create more life. We're always driven by procreation. Like the reason why we're attracted to each other, you know, we can go into like La La Land and all the mystical reasons, but actually why we're attracted to each other because of our smell. That's it. Basic. Because the smell carries the information about your immune system, and because if your immune system is complementary to mine, then we can have healthy babies. that simple. I love this stuff. And then, then what happens? Like, a woman needs to feel safe with this man. So if he is not providing for her, how on earth will he be able to, hold her so she feels fertile and energized to become a mother, and then to provide for a child, and to provide. So, and again, like, for people who actually desire that, then that, probably like really clarifies a lot. She looks to be safe. He wants to provide that safety. It's natural. And how safe? Like, it's like, depends. For some people, it's enough that, okay, he just pays on the bill in the restaurants. For other people, it's like, no, you actually have to completely take care of her. And then what does it do to a man? And the man is like, oh my gosh, I need to look at my bank account. I move my investments. What to do now? I have a new investment, or what is this? Like, what does it mean? And blah, 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 blah. And then this freak out is a medicine. Yeah. Because you get to heal the fear of lack there. Because if you exist in fear and in lack, it means you exist outside of God. Because God is pure abundance. And actually, the abundance mentality, it's not necessarily even if you have a lot of money that you have abundance mentality, right? Because there can be very wealthy people but very stingy. But the abundance mentality is actually also an advanced state of consciousness, where it's like you understand that you are provided for forever. Because we live in this abundant quantum field where all potentials exist for us all the time.
Yeah, that's been such a huge journey for me. With, I can still at times hear my father's voice saying, there's not enough, and the bill collector's calling, what's going on, trying to stay away from things and actually keep continuing to surrender into and know the abundance of life itself. I always look at nature for that. Here in Bali, in the jungles, there's this abundance all around us, and if I can symbiotically become connected to that abundance and recognize that that's there, then it just shows up. And that's a lot of, I've seen the last few years for myself, just this flow of abundance rising and moving through. And then even, in my current relationship, recognizing that it's helping me up level even more into a deeper state of into family, into, eventually becoming a father, and really stepping into this place of deep abundance and recognizing and actually feeling, because for a while it was like a concept of, oh yeah, the universe has got my back and I'm good. But inside I'd be like, nah, shit's about to fall apart here. Like, I could feel that. But now I'm like, oh wow, that actually, I could feel like the embodied reality of that. And there's a resting in my nervous system that comes from that, that's just allowed everything just to blossom and grow and expand. The last year I'm now, owner or co-owner in over 3 properties in Bali and Spain and, in Portugal, and seeing this expanse of wealth and this expanse. And it's actually just coming from the light of service, the light of sharing my heart and supporting people, essentially to wake the fuck up and remember the love that they are. So I can relate a lot.
Yeah, beautiful. I love this blossoming.
Yeah, when you were sharing about the smell, I had a moment in memory when we were together. I traveled all the way across the world. I was coming from like New Zealand to India, and I met you, and I was like, I need to go take a shower, and you're like, no. And I was like, you sure, babe? And I love that moment, because I felt like that you were loving a part of me that I had never been loved before, like that, like primal, like what felt like smelly state. But there was a bond there that happened of just like wow, oh my God, like, in the reflective nature of love that I felt from that allowed me to love myself even deeper. So that just flashed in my awareness as we were chatting.
Beautiful memory.
Yeah, and it's there's something quite remarkable when a soul or a human feels like the true essence of love, and it makes sense why people hold on to it and grasp onto it. It's like, I've never been loved like this before. Like, this is, whew. And I guess I'd love to hear like thoughts on, in that place, and maybe you've worked with people in this way, when that feeling inside, like I'm never going to be loved like this before, so why even bother? Like, a partner dies, or a relationship ends, and you see often, when older couples, and they've been together and one partner dies, and then soon after the other one goes, it's almost like that love existing in that form shifted and changed.
Yeah, but then it's like, because it's true that like in intimacy, it's just so beautiful how we can represent the divine for each other. But at the same time, it's just so important not to take it too literally. Like, yeah, enjoy that. And that's why like Tantra is just so beautiful, because it really helps you to connect. Like, one of the key elements of Tantra is transfiguration, where you literally look at the person and you see the divine in them. And then that is just such a gorgeous practice for all the romantics. When I first came across this thing like 15 years ago, I was like, wow, but that's exactly, yes, this is another that's it. But then from there you can start to end up relating to someone's potential, and to really like try to seek for that divinity out of addiction, out of like, yes, but I feel it, but yes, but you really, and it's true, yes, we can give each other that sense of divine love, but it will never be complete. It's just a taster. It's just, like I always feel with men that I related with, it's like, it's another son of God, that God sends me another one of his beloved sons, and they give this thing to me, like they touch me. It's like God touches me through them. But at the same time, I still remember my eternal beloved, which will never be replaced by a person, no matter how magnificent the person is. And so that's where it's so important to keep that awareness, to keep going higher in our own states of consciousness. Because if you get stuck and you hook into that thing, and but this relationship is perfect, it needs to work, it needs to, like, we need to make it work, we need to and then something happens, like death or separation or something, and then it's like your whole stability gets shaken, because you've relied so entirely on that. But you cannot rely on anything external. It happened to me a few times in my life where everything got shaken up. Everything. Like, first death of my best friend, that's kind of started my spiritual path, and it was so difficult. But then my whole world opened up. And then, losing my home, losing my sense of stability in the country where I grew up, losing my job, and going like, okay, I cannot be a lawyer anymore. Should I look for another job? Or, I cannot live in this country. I feel horrible there. I go to another place. I don't know where to live, what to do, how to be. And then another separation, another, and then it's like, every time this happens, of course something shakes up. But then every time through this shake up, it's like I shed aspects of my identity which were not serving any longer. And then it's completely new big space opens up where I'm like, wow, let's dance.
Something blossoms open.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear your definition, or what you speak into in Tantra. I feel like this is something in our world, and I know even from knowing you, you've had journeys of identifying with it and then not identifying with it, and I've had the same, where there's times where I've kind of stayed away, but then also had a desire to help redefine what it is. Just so many people don't really get it, and I think oftentimes in a mainstream framework they hear the word Tantra and they just think sex parties and orgies, and don't actually understand the essence. So like, how would you define Tantra, especially to someone who maybe hasn't been in circles that we've been, or groups, or has never been to Ubud, Bali, or or just places, or communities, or just conscious communities? Because there's a lot of these, there's play parties and temple nights and tantric events and all these things popping up, and I think the essence of it gets lost. And I'm about to teach tomorrow a living tantra retreat. We go into this quite deeply, but I'd love to hear from your side, like, how do you define or share it to someone who doesn't have a lot of frames of reference to really to allow it to land into their body?
Yeah. So the easiest way to explain it is meeting God in every instance of your life. this is Tantra. So it's a spiritual path, but unlike traditional spiritual paths, which involve removing yourself from the modern world, from society, from all the distractions, traditional spiritual path will involve going to monastery or going into the mountains and just removing yourself from this lila, from this maya, from this illusion that we live in, this but it's one approach, and there are monks meditating, praying all day long in the asceticism, and it's incredible, also massive service to humanity, just in a very different way. But this path, it doesn't fit for everyone. And then there's another path, which is the path of Tantra, which involves being actually in the world, being active, and at the same time communing with God. And recognizing God through every experience, through every moment. So that is.
And how have you found God in the moments of the depth of despair and the difficulty and the deep challenges? And I know, you've shared that things like that publicly as well, like difficult times of navigating into depression and challenges. And how does someone maybe who's listening right now, who's maybe even contemplating taking life or leaving this world, and they're in the dark trenches of their being, where is God there? Like how does that apply into this field of Tantra?
I've had to go through a lot of really dark periods in my life. It was definitely not all fairies and butterflies for me. And what I find is that what hurts is the resistance. So when there is this kind of state of overwhelm, and it feels like there's just so much, and things are not going the right way, and just life is so demanding, and you just don't have capacity to give, the best thing to do here is just not to resist it. Because it's like you can find yourself in this darkness, and then you keep trying to get out of it, and then there's shame that you are even there, because you may have done so much work on yourself, and you're like, I have all the tools, why nothing is working? And I've literally been in that state. I had quite a it coincided with a very big spiritual breakthrough that I was going through not that long ago, and I was like, the tools don't work. I'm sorry.
This is all baloney. This is not real.
And then all I had to do was just to give myself to this experience. There was like literally nothing works. Like all the things, all the morning practices and the embodiment and the training and the discipline, like still, like, there was this kind of sense that, like, it's just, there's a lot of darkness, and it's completely dark. I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. It's just dark. And so and the shame, that comes on top, where it's like, well, why no? Like, it can't be enough. Like, can we just take a month and then we're done with that? But in truth, like, when you're really going through the periods of the void and in the stages of awakening, actually it's dark. Like, it's legit dark. And of course, it helps to have mentors, to have support, to have people who can support and kind of say, like, okay, it's kind of like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. It's a phase. It's like, and you have to give yourself to it. And that's what I did. And time and time again, I just saw that the moment I stopped fighting this darkness, the moment I stopped trying to take myself out of it prematurely, and just, stop distracting myself with things to do, places to go, ideas to put together or something like that. The moment I stopped distracting myself, that's when actually I found bliss in that darkness. Because bliss is always there, because we're always eternally embraced. There's actually nothing to change. There's nowhere to get. You're not going to be closer to God if you are more successful, if you're more visible, if you have a partner, or if you have more money. You're not going to be closer to God. You're closest you are to God is right now. And this is the bliss. And this is the human experience that we have, like, to really, like, give ourselves to this experience, to this embrace, to this devotion, to be loved by the divine. And you are loved always. Like, even when your partner is behaving strange and you don't find each other and you keep fighting, even when you don't have a partner and you're so sick of being single, and when your business is not taking off and you had this experience, you still are embraced. So can you just relax?
Can we relax into the embrace?
Can you just relax a little?
Can we relax into the chaos that's happening even right now on this planet?
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. And at the same time, without this relaxation, we cannot create anything. Because people try to create from a place of stress. You cannot create from a place of stress. You need to relax. Like, I'm sorry. You just have to relax.
Your asshole.
Just relax. Yeah, that helps.
That helps a lot. And I mentioned this with the world. I feel like the worlds that we're in and the people we're impacting and the leaders, like, of course, each one of us is making a difference. And sometimes I hear it's like, well, then there's all these other beings that are making greater decisions and having such an impact on politics, on finance. And there's, it can almost turn to doomsday sometimes. And what's exciting for me to look at, especially in these dialogues, is like where from the leadership that each one of us has and leadership that you have, how do you feel like your leadership of love is impacting? Like, how is it, of course, how is it making an impact, not only in your life, but the lives of others? Not to try to change them, but how do you actually, is there a way to quantify or to personify that as something that's tangible, or is that just in the mystery?
Yeah, well, I find that the greatest work we can do is the work we do within, and the purity and transparency that we activate within, because the highest giving we can ever give is to be the totality of who we came here to be. Even in the Buddhist teachings of the rainbow body. So rainbow body, like we come into a state of rainbow body, it's a state of kind of this ultimate enlightenment, when you actually like gain such a mastery over life that you simply become a rainbow. And these are like really, really ancient teachings that people actually have experienced that and entered into that state. And then what happens is that once one person enters into that state, it radiates everywhere, all across the world, and like to the people that are close by. And so for us to enter into a new stage of our evolution as humanity, we need to elevate the state of consciousness, because the reason why there are those wars and all these horrendous things happening on the planet is because we are not focused on what actually matters. We're focused on some stupid things, and not focusing on actually the real problems and the real thing. Why? Because we don't have the consciousness for that. And the mind is unfocused, and the energy is directed like in a scattered ways. So it's only like what I see I'm doing is I'm doing everything I can to serve love, which means to serve the evolution of humanity, which means to serve the evolution of our consciousness. And the more our consciousness rises, the more we come into this purest vibration, as pure as we can be, then it emanates from us. So what I see happening to my clients all the time is that they do the work with me, and we work on elevating the consciousness. And it looks in so many different ways. We talk about different things, we practice different things, but then what's going on in them is that they start to see reality from a different level of consciousness. And people around them change, not doing the work, just they change. Like, so often women come and they're like, my partner is doing I don't want to hear about this. I don't want to hear about your ping pong battles. I want to know what's going on inside of you. And we work on that, and she starts to shift that, and then her man just starts to change and bring her flowers and do a little yoga in the morning. Like, he never done any kind of yoga. He doesn't go to classes. Like, where is this coming from? And the children start to change, and so that's what I see. That's the greatest impact. And of course, when we are together with groups, and I really love those massive big groups. I'll be teaching at a really big festival this year. I'm teaching at Boom this year, and I'm excited about this stuff. Last year I had or 2 at some point in this non-linear
At
reality.
some point in this reality
I had a
of
group of like 220 people in front of me in my own event, and it's like, and I really just see that it's like we can do big things when we are together, but at the same time it's really about the individual, what each individual does, how honest can they be, how transparent can they be, how ready are they to let go of all this holding and allow grace to take over.
Yeah, it reminds me when I was first involved in this field, and I was living in LA, and I was quite often speaking to groups, of large quantity, more in the frame of mindfulness and consciousness pieces, and and I can witness now, whether it's a small group or big group, like the recognizable impact that can shift when someone's inner reality changes. And really what I'm hearing you say is that when that inner reality changes and the outer reality absolutely, personifies and shifts with that kind of electromagnetic field that's shifting in space and time. And whether it's past, present, or future, we're still figuring that out. So what's exciting and ahead moving forward for you, especially in the realms of leadership? That's something I really like to look upon at the show, is how we're looking at the bigger things as you're discussing, but what's some of the practicalities of what you're creating in the realms of leadership?
Good question. Well, I work with some really long-term students and clients of mine, and we're doing some really deep work. We're going to Egypt at the end of the year.
Amazing.
It's rare that I do that, but I really believe that when we go to Egypt and we go there with specific mindset and readiness and preparation, then we actually can upload all the codes that we left there for ourselves. And I see quite major transformations happening to people once they go and do that. Then in terms of leadership, actually, particularly, like in terms of purpose, like something is like, because it's like many of us remember on a certain level the fall of Egypt. We remember how we were building something so magnificent, and then it was just all destroyed. And so then sometimes when people start to take steps on their path of leadership, then they start to wobble and be worried, and they start to get impacted. No one is signing up, no one is coming, and all of that is just fluff. And the real thing is like, how certain can you be that you get to walk this path, that you get to be in the truth, that you get to trust your steps, and you get to trust in your integrity. So that's coming, and I'm working deeply with like my close people. But then at the same time, yeah, I'm running. I'm completing to run my retreats, which I've been running for many years, which is interesting. And so I'm transitioning from small groups to actually wanting to impact big numbers of people, and I see myself on big stages, touching a lot of people, and it's something that feels it feels exciting inside of me, but then at the same time it feels like just like I just have to give myself to it, and it will be done, because I just know I have what it takes to be on the stage, and I know what's happening to me and what's happening to people in front of me when I'm there, and I feel it's like that's how she wants to move. That's how Grace wants to move, and I let it.
Yeah, a transmission of loving consciousness that gives a greater field permission to come back to really know themselves and to expand into what's truly possible. Well, I want to appreciate you for the lives that you're impacting, and yeah, my own life as well. And it's a pleasure to witness you from, we don't see each other so often, but here and there, and just to witness your own growth and celebrating and honoring your way forward. And pleasure to have you as a friend in my life. Thank you for the deepening of love and friendship whenever there's been space and time. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm so happy we cultivate this relationship, and also to see you across time and space, and to hold each other in our awareness. It's beautiful.
I was reflecting for a moment. I was just in Egypt about 2 years ago and had a profound, deep activation. Went to a number of like untouched temples, and then had flashes of our Egypt trip together, which was beautifully challenging and loving and a celebration and all the ups and downs of life. So I appreciate the humor and the joy that can come with that as well.
Do you want to share? Because you mentioned something before. Do you want to share your highlights from that trip?
Well, I think there was just witnessing of the raw form of Shakti. The raw form of Shakti in all of her expressions. And it humbled me, would be the best way to say it. Humbled to a deeper level of appreciation. And yeah, just these weavings of energetics, and just the journey, both esoterically and spiritually as well as physically, that I feel like we sort of self-initiated each other in different various ways on that trip together.
This is very Piscean to give highlights.
Would you like to offer a few highlights?
Well, I'm just concerned about your listeners. I think it's like
it's all is welcome.
No, but just in the way that we speak about, because you mentioned something before, then I thought like maybe to give a little context, but maybe not.
We'll leave it to the mystery. We'll leave it to the mystery. Maybe it'll be another episode down the road.
Okay.
Thank you for I appreciate you. And if you want to find out more about Sofia, your website,
SofiaSundari.com, Instagram, send me a DM.
Great. Thank you all for tuning in. Please like or subscribe to Love, Sex, and Leadership, and see you next time. If you have any questions for either Sofia or I, feel free to comment below or send us a message. Have a beautiful day.